You've got to take off your pants. Wait, I could get in trouble for saying
Welcome to Hello PhD, a podcast for scientists and the people who love them. Today in the show, we hear the story of a lab fail that started with radioactivity and got worse from there. Stay with us.
And we're back. This is Hello PhD, episode 50. I'm Joshua Hall.
And I'm Daniel Arneman.
And we'll discuss the human side of science and life in the lab. 50 episodes.
Wow, is this, you would normally say this is the semi-century mark or something like that, wouldn't you?
This is our golden episode, Dan.
Yeah, we're getting old. We should probably just stop.
Did you think...
Just getting started.
Did you think we'd make it to 50?
I didn't think we'd make it to 2, honestly, if I think back to the first one.
You know, I mean, our fear from the beginning was always, with a weekly show, that we would quickly run out of things to talk about.
No, we have a huge backlog that we will probably never get to.
Yeah, I mean, we've done 50 episodes, and we haven't even been doing this for a year yet.
And 3 of them had content. That's the secret.
Make it stretch, people. Make it stretch. Dad, I was curious, so I looked up some facts about the number 50.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm ready. I like math.
So besides 50th anniversary being the golden anniversary,
Yep.
Did you know that 50 is the smallest integer that can be expressed as the sum of 2 positive squares in 2 distinct ways?
That is incredible. Would you like to tell us those ways?
I would. So you can express 50 as 49 plus 1.
That's 7 squared plus 1 squared. I'm with you.
Or 25 plus 25.
That's just 5 squared twice.
Well, I know. That's sort of a...
Kind of cheating.
50 on a technicality.
What's the third largest number that can be expressed as the sum of 2 positive squares in 2 distinct ways?
I'll be back at you next week with that one.
All right. We're going to add a math puzzle to the show.
Yes. This is a unique beer we have here. I'm very intrigued by the title.
Okay, so this is your punishment for the lemon shandy from a few weeks ago. I was in the store and I saw this gem and I thought, Josh needs to try this.
Well, before we get started, so this is from Shiner Brewery. This is from Shiner, Texas. And I like Shiner Bock.
Yeah, you can get Shiner all across the country.
Shiner's not a bad beer.
Try out some Shiner.
But according to the label, this is the Shiner Prickly Pear Summer Seasonal.
I felt like with all of the funny ingredients we are drinking in beer recently that we needed more cactus.
I mean, so not only have I never had prickly pear in beer, I'm not sure I've had prickly pear in general.
Out of beer, yeah.
So I'm going to taste this.
Yeah, give that a swig. I think
Are you sure this is not just, this is the prickly pear seasonal, like it's the, longhorn steer seasonal, like this is actual...
it contains prickly pear, or so they claim.
Oh yeah, I'm reading this. The fruit of the prickly pear, a cactus native to our brewery's landscape, blends wonderfully with Citra and U.S. Golding hops for a tart citrusy flavor, unlike any other summer lager.
Give that a try, and be careful. You're going to want to watch for the thorns. They can really get stuck in your throat.
Okay. That was surprising.
It's like Kool-Aid and beer together at last.
That's what the flavor is.
Yeah, it's like I don't remember what flavor of Kool-Aid. It might be cherry or grape or something.
Blue flavor, Dan.
Yeah. Well, the beer is not blue.
No, it's not.
And the label's pink, so yeah, you're getting pink flavor. That's the key.
It really tastes like an artificial fruit flavor, but allegedly it's not.
I wasn't there when they made it. I have no idea.
I think what we're going to have to do is locate some prickly pear fruit.
Okay.
And try it.
We'll sample it.
And see if it tastes like this.
Somebody send us some prickly pear.
Okay.
Lots of other updates on previous episodes I wanted to let you know about. Josh, you remember way back in episode 41, 9 episodes ago, we interviewed Juan from Oxford about the peer support program that he was working with at his university?
I do. Great interview.
Yeah, they were doing this program to really support the mental health of people in the college, but also he was really applying this in his lab. I just wanted to let everybody know he's got a new website up called Labmosphere, which is like a combination of lab atmosphere. And they're dedicated to promoting the emotional well-being, mental health, and overall life satisfaction in the area of academic sciences. So they've got a blog, they've got links to different resources for people to improve your mental health in lab, and a place that you can share your stories. So really a great place to go if you want to learn more about improving mental health of yourself and the people in the lab around you. So again, that was episode 41 if you want to hear that one.
Yeah, it's super cool to hear about these grad student-led movements to really improve training, improve the mental health, and just the well-being of trainees in the sciences. Pretty cool.
Nobody else is doing it, so the students have to, and I think it's cool.
Yeah, and so we will link all that in the show notes. Also, he is on the Twitter sphere at Labmosphere. Oh, look at that.
It's tough to say.
Everything's in a sphere. The Twitter sphere.
The Twitter sphere.
On Twitter, he is at Labmosphere. So check it out. Yeah, Dan, so something else. I'm on the Reddit from time to time. And so I was talking about one of our past episodes about how many postdocs there were. And
did we ever find out how many?
I think there were...
we got up to 7.
At least 7, greater than or equal to 7.
One of the Reddit comments was, too many. So that kind of tells you.
Oh, snap.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we had a comment from someone on a Reddit post that was friends of the executive director of the Future Research who were involved in or that article about not knowing how many postdocs there were. And so this person alerted us to the fact that there is a national postdoc survey that's been organized by the University of Chicago Postdoc Association. And they really are trying to get the word out to get postdocs to fill out the survey as a way to remedy this issue of lack of transparency in the number of postdocs and their outcomes. So I just wanted to give a signal boost to that. We will post a link on our show notes.
Postdocsurvey.org.
Postdocsurvey.org or Google search National Postdoc Survey and you will find that.
There's some indication that there's some deadline on it. So if you're hearing this, go check now and make sure. There might just be a few days left.
Drop everything and go fill out the National Postdoc Survey.
If you're driving your car, just steer into oncoming traffic, getting your phone out to fill out the survey.
But only if you're a postdoc.
Don't do it.
So Dan, speaking of people we've spoken to recently, last week we had Nicole, Chris, and Craig crammed in here in the studio with us.
It was fun. I really enjoyed that.
I loved it. We've got to have them back. That was just a great time. Good to get some perspectives. I'm sure people were glad to hear some voices other than ours for a change.
I was.
And so anyway, one of the other things that we were doing here was we were helping out Nicole. She wanted to interview Craig about a really crazy lab story he had from grad school. And she's doing this as part of the Benchwarmers podcast. Have you heard of that one?
I have, yeah. I've listened to the Benchwarmers. It was really fun. Just stories from lab, stories from grad school and science. It's really entertaining.
Yeah, super great podcast put on by 2 grad students, Carl and Maddie. And I was lucky enough to meet Maddie a few weeks back. She was down here in North Carolina for the Triangle ComSciCon. And her boss, she's actually doing an internship with NPR, and she's working with Joe Palca, the science news correspondent at NPR.
That's exciting.
Yeah, and actually got to get Maddie on the show and hear about that cool opportunity. But anyway, great to meet her, great podcast. And I think, this story was so great, we're going to crossover post it on our podcast, and you'll also hear it as part of the Benchwarmers podcast in an upcoming episode as well.
Yeah, so if you like this type of story, definitely check out Benchwarmers because that's their shtick. I think it comes out once a month.
Yeah, I think on average once a month, and super hilarious, and they do a great job with that.
Add it to your tissue culture routine. Let's hear the story.
My name is Nicole Baker. I am a graduate student at the University of North Carolina. So I am actually here because I know a guy with a great story about fails in the laboratory, massive laboratory failures. So Craig, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us what you do, whose lab you're in, and also tell us what is your favorite thing about being a scientist.
Well, thank you for having me. My name is Craig Goodwin. I am a postdoc in the same laboratory that you work in, so we see each other every day. Mm-hmm. I am here to tell you about some things that probably should not have occurred in the lab. My favorite thing about being a scientist, that's a good question. So I do a lot of, I'm in the field of drug discovery. And one thing that we talk about a lot in day to day is that we are not working with drugs. We're working with compounds that we hope become drugs. And so I think the greatest thing that I could ever achieve, and what is, I think, very motivational to me, is to contribute to the progression from a compound that causes an effect in a cell to actually a clinical candidate and eventually creating a drug that is used to treat patients. I have several friends and colleagues that have contributed to that and have drugs to their name. And so I think that's very rewarding. But it's also a lot of fun just to play around with incredibly expensive reagents and increasing knowledge.
I would say my answer for why I like science is because I'm going to steal this from what Craig actually said earlier in the day. is that I get to spend more in a month than I will ever probably make in a year on scientific reagents. And that's a lot of fun. So you have a really great story about somebody you know that had a massive lab failure. Why don't you go ahead and set the stage and tell us about that story?
Well, yeah, I'd like to tell you the story about something that is very heavily regulated, and for good reason, and that is radioactivity. And when something is so heavily regulated and legitimately dangerous, something happens to people, and that is that they totally altogether in their normal everyday life, they become so clumsy and incapacitated that it boggles the imagination. And so the star of our story, this poor graduate student, was working one day at the bench when all of a sudden, through her fingers, drops a bottle of tritiated something or other, and it hits the floor and just explodes. And this substance, this liquid, explodes everywhere, over her, over the floor, over the cabinets, everywhere, and she is horrified.
And this person is not you, correct?
Yeah, this is not me. I will not reveal a name to protect the guilty. So it goes everywhere, and she is horrified. It's on her everywhere. So immediately, it's all over her pants. So she takes her pants off immediately. Obviously, safety first. And she's like, well, I gotta go home. I gotta take a shower. I gotta clean up. This is this huge disaster. So she runs out of the lab. She's wearing a lab coat, which thankfully. So this is not a story about public indecency, but instead, all of her lab mates are looking at this disaster and say, okay, well, what do we do? They're going to shut the lab down. We got to call environmental health and safety, and they're going to come up here. So they call the radiation safety office, and they come up there with their Geiger counters, and they're scanning everything, and they're like, oh, this is a huge disaster. Everywhere, all over the cabinet. So they start their cleanup procedure, all over everything, and all over the floor. It's a big puddle. And then they notice that their counts aren't localized just at the puddle, but they start following it. And it's by the doorway. And it goes down the hall. And they keep following this thing. And there is a trail of radioactive residue heading all the way down the hall, down the stairs, down the sidewalk. They follow this trail all the way to the parking garage. up to the third floor of the parking garage. And it ends at an empty parking spot. Because where did this radioactive residue go? This liquid went all over the cabinet, all over her pants, and the floor. And this poor girl walked all the way to her car, leaving a trail of tritiated something or other. So they find out her address, and they go to her house, and they pick the trail up. It's in her car. It's going all the way to her door, and they go in, and there she is. So they walk in and with their Geiger counters, and they discover the incriminating shoes laying in the middle of the floor. They immediately confiscate those. This is a major disaster. We have tritiated residue all over the town. So they immediately call the proper authorities. They get the backhoe. They get the bulldozer. They get the jackhammer. And they start digging up the sidewalk. They're pulling up the carpeting. They're digging up the sidewalk. They're digging up the asphalt. They are tearing everything up, because if it got out that there is radioactivity loose in the city, the whole place would shut down.
So I have to ask, did this girl request that these construction workers allow her to, place her hands and sign the cement that was being laid down, to sign her work?
No, this girl wanted nothing more to do with the incident.
I would have done that.
Okay. Well, rule 101 of radiation safety is you don't walk out of lab covered in radioactivity. Rule number 2 is you don't go home and leave radioactivity all over the parking lot.
So what happened to this girl after that? Did she stay in the lab?
No, she's actually doing quite well. She did change fields. She's working in a field now where if she drops something, it will not cause a disaster. She's a banker, and she can drop money with no issues whatsoever, and everybody will jump to her aid when she drops money, but it will not.
Well, we like a happy ending. All right. Well, thanks, Craig, and thanks to Maddie and Carl for allowing us to share this ridiculous story of radioactivity with you.
You are welcome.
Well, that was a crazy story.
Yeah. I just don't know where to start. I don't know why people didn't think to check out the shoes, but yep.
A similar thing happened when I was an undergrad in the lab. She spilled some radioactivity on her pants. She didn't know what to do, and she told the PI, like, oh, I've spilled radiation on my pants. And he was like, you've got to take off your pants. Wait, I could get in trouble for saying that. So after that happened, we had a pair of lab sweatpants that stayed in the lab.
The lab sweats. Yeah, I mean, radiation should make you nervous. And when you're nervous, you're going to be more likely to drop something. It just seems like a bad recipe for disaster.
Yeah. Well, that was a great story. And
makes me want to carry a Geiger counter around because you don't know how many people go to lab every day, work with radiation. Somebody could be taking it home.
Well, I just want to say if science doesn't work out as a career for Craig, I think he has a future as a Geiger counter impersonator. Yeah.
If we can make a Geiger counter app and he'll just voice it for us.
That's right. All right, Dan. Let's move on to our etymology puzzle.
All right. It was another softball this week, so I got lots of good answers. The clue was, on this day in June, the sun seems to stand still. We just celebrated this event, Josh.
And I happen to know this because my wedding anniversary is on this day.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Tell us what it is.
It's the summer solstice.
Very good. Solstice from the Latin, which means sol for sun. And there's this root called sistere that means to come to a stop or to make stand still. And this was the softball clue, but what I really liked about the word solstice, I'd never really thought about where it came from. That sistere word shows up everywhere. So you've heard of an armistice before? This is an agreement that the people will stop fighting.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
right.
like we're going to stop our arms, which is arm. But it's also the root word for so many different words. So like assist, to stand by, resist, to stand against, exist, to stand forth, persist, consist, subsist, desist. All of these words come from this Latin root. So I thought it was pretty awesome.
So this also looks like the word sister.
Yeah, I don't know if it's related to sister. I didn't see that.
It's the word sister with an E at the end, right?
Sistere, yeah. Let me look up the word sister very quickly.
Do they ever say sistere from another mystere?
I think that I've never heard that. No, it comes from a totally different language, sister. Our use of sister. Sorry.
Okay, well, had to ask.
Old English. The winner this week was, I'm going to probably not say this right, but I think it's Anya from Stanford. So we'll be sending Anya an Amazon gift card.
All right. Thanks for playing. Congrats.
Yep. And I've got another clue for you.
Lay it on me.
Should I work out this calf muscle on my leg days or my stomach days? I'll read the clue one more time. Should I work out this calf muscle on my leg days or my stomach days? Remember, I'm looking for a scientific word described with the clue, and once you get it, you'll find that the literal meaning of that science word is a phrase in the clue itself. If you think you know the answer, email it to puzzle@hellophd.com, and I will randomly select a winner from all the correct responses and send the lucky puzzler an Amazon gift card.
You know, the other day at the gym, we had plank day.
What's that?
You know what a plank is?
I know that photo competition where you were trying to plank on things. Is that it?
Yeah, so like a plank is this position where you get down on your forearms and you are stiff as a board and you try to hold that.
For the listeners
position.
at home, he's trying to demonstrate this.
It's hard to position the mic correctly.
Yeah.
So we had to see who could do it the longest. And, most people lasted like 3 minutes, maybe 4 if they were really great.
How'd you do?
I'm not going to say.
I've never known you to lose a game, Josh.
Well, I did not win this one. There was a woman in her mid-50s who planked for 16 minutes.
Wow. It doesn't seem like it'd be that hard, but I'm sure I'm not thinking about the muscles correctly.
Well, we can try it later and see how
plank
you do.
Competition later.
All right, Dan. Well, this has been a great show. Thanks especially to Nicole and Craig for that hilarious story.
Hilariously frightening.
If you have an idea for a future show, something you want to talk about, we would love to hear it. You can email us podcast@hellophd.com. We've got 50 more episodes to do, and we need your help.
Yeah, if you have a particularly awesome lab fail, we would love to record it and play it for everybody else, or you can record it and we'll play it for everybody else. Just email us.
That's something I wanted to say. I think when we started this podcast, one thing I really envisioned was, we don't have to have these grandiose big picture topics all the time. If you've just got something amusing or weird that happened to you in the lab, we would certainly love to hear that as well.
Yeah, the tagline is life in the lab. So certainly people are living every day and doing funny things.
Yeah, so let us know. You can also tweet at us @HelloPhD or contact us on the Facebook page. If you're buying something on Amazon, you can click through our Amazon banner on the sidebar, and that will help give us a little bit of spare change to buy some more Prickly Pear Shiner Bot.
Is that what we're going to do with it?
We will certainly not buy any more Prickly Pear Shiner Bot, but we'll probably buy something else that's tastier.
Yeah, basically beer money. Thanks for listening, and I guess we will see you next week for episode 51 on the next half of this century.
Turn the page. See you next time, Dan.